What's up? We just finished getting set up here. All right. So today, one sec. I got some sound I have to mute. So today I'm gonna do a pretty quick demo. Actually, it's surprisingly quick. Starting from a blank canvas, creating a landing page. Just something that shows the brand, has a little intro paragraph, and then a waitlist sign up. And what you can do in Bildr is you can create something like this, publish it live on day one, and then as you're working on your product, you're collecting signups on this waitlist, but they're actual users. So when you're ready, when your product's finished, you're just clicking let off waitlist one at a time, or if you have it, you can do it another way. And then when people get off the waitlist, their account is created. So there's a lot of flexibility there. It's kind of a cool feature of Bildr. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to build that up in a workspace so that in a separate workspace, I could build this product, which I will build for real in the future. It's a real thing. And then I'm going to publish it to a live domain and go live here. So this is kind of just off the cuff, but if it goes well, then I'm going to kind of like redo it in a cleaner way and split this into 4 or 5 bite-sized videos so that it's really easy to follow along and do this. It's kind of like a nice first little win. If you're just starting off your project, you can come in here and wrap your head around the tool, etc. So let me get started. So I have a blank Bildr project here, and I have a test run of something I built. And so this test run, it looks like this when you preview it. It's for a real project of mine, which I won't talk too much about right now, but it's a more modern way to find lost pets. It's a very strange, like, passion project that I've had this kind of clever idea for a while, so made sense to do it here for this. I want to get it out there for real. So this just describes a little bit about what it is, and then it's got an email with a sign up here. And that's all that the whole page is. So in order to recreate it, I'm going to first pull in a pattern that I created previously that is available to all Bildr users. I'll show you how in a second. And then with that pattern, we'll just modify it a little, and then we'll have our landing page. And so let's just get started, I guess, and I'll talk through some of these decisions as I go. So in my blank project, I'm going to click this plus. And normally what you would do if you're starting from scratch, which I almost always do for my projects, but in the future, and I think a lot of people will probably be starting from patterns most often, which is what we're going to do this time. So instead of hitting a blank page here, dragging that onto this canvas, this infinite canvas, I'm going to actually go to import patterns. And this will let me choose from a couple curated patterns that we have. Let me hide my notifications real quick. Whoa, froze up the computer trying to do that. Okay, I'll hide them in a second. So it shows these curated patterns, and these are ones that we've sort of chosen to be here. So you can see there's a couple cool ones, a couple good ones. Come on. But the one that I want is called landing page with waiting list, which is right here. And what I can do is I can view this pattern here. It'll show me a studio read-only view that I can look at to decide if I want this pattern, basically. But I'll show you here because this is the pattern we'll be starting from. So once it loads up, it is image on the left, a little logo up here, heading, a write-up, and the waiting list. And the waiting list, if we look through some of the actions on this page, there's actually a couple really helpful things in there, like proper error messages, and like a nice little transition comes up when they sign in successfully, or if they get an error, that kind of thing. So there's a lot in here that by using this template, not only do I get the layout itself, but also I get these actions. And so I don't have to remake all these actions. It's very helpful. So I like this pattern. I don't need that preview anymore. I come back to my project and I can hit import. And this is going to ask me for a workspace name, which the way it works in Bildr, you have this infinite canvas and you have the different workspaces for different parts of your project. So I'll have a workspace that is for this email capture landing page, and I can call it landing page with waitlist, that makes sense. And then I don't need to bring the data structure. It wouldn't matter if I did, but this doesn't actually have any data structure. It's just using users, which are built into every Bildr project. So I pull that pattern in, and now my project has not just this page with this stuff on it, but it's got all the styles that make up this. It's got all those actions that I just showed you for this page, and everything's linked up and bound. So it's kind of the pattern. When you bring it in, you're getting the visuals, you're getting the layout stuff, and you're getting the functionality. It's kind of whatever you need. And so to go from this look to this look, I'm just going to change a few styles now. And I didn't want to go crazy on the styles, so I want to go through the function of this demo and get all the way through. But you can go as far as you want with styles on your own landing page, or start from something like this, which is responsive out of the box and stuff like that. And you can do something big. What I'm doing is more like removing all the extra stuff and just have a single column, but that's okay. That's actually what I want for that brand anyway. So if I come into this, this layout here, the element list, I kind of know how, I definitely know how this is set up because I made it, but I kind of know how things are set up because I'm a developer, so I know code. If you don't, you can come in here and just see what's on all these styles. You can click on an element, you can click on a style, and you can see what kind of properties it has. And that's how you would know if you were fresh and you were new to this. That's how you would know what to remove, stuff like that. I'm very familiar with this pattern, so I'm just going to remove a few things that I know. So I know this outer container is making these two columns, and I know this first container background image, I don't need it all. So the first thing I'll do is just delete that. And then on this outer column, it's got this class on here that's making it a 2-column grid. And just to keep it simple, I don't actually need any of these classes to stay on here, but I'm going fast. I'm just making this a temporary landing page. So I just make a little adjustment to the column template on that CSS grid. And so the things I just did were CSS. They're kind of like separate of Bildr, but what's cool about Bildr is that because I know CSS, I can just come in here and do that in that method. Or I could come remove all these properties. That would have worked. I could set completely different properties. Whatever you feel comfortable as far as like your knowledge of CSS and code, you can achieve. So now I've got this single column. It's looking pretty good. And what I'll do is I'll add that logo that's on the top, the image. I'll remove some of the styles that came with the pattern, and then I'll add this font. You can see this is a custom font, which will add, it's a Google font. And then style the input, style the button. And that's pretty much it. So let's jump in. I've got this container join waiting list, which was that right-hand column. Now I just have it like a single column of things. So I can click the plus to add this logo image, find image, and just drag it right to where I need it in the hierarchy. So this starts with a data URI image. It's like the code of an image right here to make that. I just switch that to media library, and then I can select from my computer. So I should have this almost ready to go. Kind of forget where this is. There we go. All right. So I add that image, which is an SVG for scalability, but that can be obviously any kind of image. And then let me just copy some of these texts here. I have a multi-paste, so what I can do is just get all this on my clipboard in one shot. All right. So the first one, I've got this H1. You can see it's an H1 tag here. I've got that already in place, so I might as well just use it. And so I can just set I can type in here, or I can type in here to set the display text. I'll just set that to the first one. Did I even copy it? Nope. But it's the Lost Pet Network. And what I can do, I'll do styles in a second. Let me just pop all these in. And then here I had a subheading on that other one. This is like a paragraph. So let me just add a heading under that H1. And this one I can keep as an H2, or maybe I'd make it an H3. But for now, I'll just keep it as an H2. And I'll just go down and paste that text. This is a paragraph already, so I can do that first. paragraph text. And then what I'll do, each paragraph is its own element, just like HTML, each one is a p tag. So I'll just duplicate that element for the next paragraph, duplicate it again for the third. So this one would be that. And this one would be that. And then I had a different message for this waiting list text that said sign up to get notified. And I might make that in H3 in this case. Okay, so that's pretty much all my text in place. It still looks different, you can see. So the first thing I'll do is kind of get it back to a base. So I'll remove the styles that are on this here. And the way the pattern is created, it's created in a way that if you want to not use any of the styles, you just clear them all off really quickly. If you want to use them, you keep them on there. So if I go to this H1 and start with that, if I come into the styling tab, I have the default heading class, which comes with the element from Bildr, and I have a utility class, in this case called heading H1 landing page with waiting list. So the heading class that comes with Bildr is actually blank. If I had more going on in this project before I imported this pattern would pick up any styles that I had in heading already. And then this pattern modifies any of those styles or overwrites them by adding a utility class. So I don't want their styles, so all I have to do is remove that utility class. And just do that for each of these elements. So this next one doesn't have a utility class because I added it myself. That didn't come from the pattern. This next paragraph, oh, that's good. That already has no styles. It has no additional styles from the pattern. So these three are good. And then this one, just remove that extra class. And then I can do the same thing here. This is a little label. So I have text input label on here. I can just remove that. And then this is an input field. I can remove that. And then this is a button. I can remove that. Now the benefit there of having those classes in the first place is if you don't want to style yourself, or if you were getting a pattern where the point of the pattern was the actual styles, you would just keep it all. But in this case, I like to have those styles on the pattern in case you want them, but I didn't need them. All right, so that's that. And then the last, well, not the last by far, I guess, but the next step and kind of a main step to make this look like this is that font. It's really the font itself and then the font size. You can see those are the big differences. And so what I'll do, I'm going to use a Google font. So what I'll do, first I would find it on Google. And I have this page up for this Inconsolata font. But in Bildr, you want to add the font to your project first so that you can use it anywhere. So you come up to the menu here, Design Library, and you get a Fonts tab. There's some other stuff going on here, but you have this fonts. And so to add, you can add a font from anywhere. You can add a font from a file on your computer. You can add a font from Google, Adobe, any of the type foundries that put out web fonts. Google fonts are nice and free, so they make sense. Most of the time I'm using either a Google font or an Adobe font because I pay for Adobe. So in this case, you click new font and you get these options. The most important one probably is this font URL here. And so in Google, the way I find that font URL, first I see all these styles for this font and I choose the ones I want. So I've already selected on regular weight and bold weight and just added them. And actually, yeah, so they're added over here. If I wanted more styles, like an extra light, or if I wanted to style it differently, I would add more. But the idea is you don't want to add them all because people have to download them when they view your site. So you want it to be faster loading, lighter weight. But anyway, I add the ones I want. In this case, bold and regular are fine. And it's giving me this code down here. So if I were coding a website, I would paste this into the head or paste this into the CSS. But in this case, I just need this link because that's what the actual font comes from. So that link to fonts.google APIs. So I copy that, I come back and I paste it in here. And then I need to just get the exact syntax or the exact format for how that font name is written, which I get right below. So that would be Inconsolata. And then the fallback is monospace. So I just copied both of those. And so we got that one and the fallback. And then the name is, I could call it whatever I want. All right, so simple enough. Got this filled out. I create the font, and now it's in my project, and I can tell because this is actually displaying in the font, which is another like cool bonus is you can make it say whatever you want to test out that font. But anyway, now I can use it. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to this landing page and I'm going to change it on a page level. I'm going to set that font and I'm going to set the font size. And that way it'll kind of like cascade down or inherit down. It'll fill out to all these different elements. So on my main page, on page properties, there's a styling tab. And that's where I can find, in this case, a style called page body landing page with waiting list. So it looks like I added that came from the pattern. And if I look at this style, it's got a few things on it, but nothing major. There's everything. That's fine. I'll just keep the style on because that's fine. But I'll add that font family in. And I can, the way I just added, I know how to type font family because I know CSS. But if you didn't, instead of being in used props on the bottom, you come into all props here. And you just have a visual list of all properties. So I would know I'm looking for the font. I would go into typography, and then I would see the typography related ones and select right here. But if you do know CSS, I find it's faster to kind of come in here like this. So font family, this is in my list now, this font I just added because I added it. And then I want to set a base font size, and I'll make everything else proportional to that. So I'll do 14 pixels. Now it looks like it didn't update in this view here. I might have to refresh to get that done. But the other thing I can do is I can live view this. Now, real quick before I click live view is an actual real life preview of what you're building on a live URL. And it updates live as you make changes. So if I have this live view open and I'm looking at it and I change something here, I don't need to refresh in the live view. It's kind of like a constant, it's not a preview. It's actually like a real version of what your site would look like. But you don't share that link. I mean, you can, I guess, but you don't share that link with people. You use the live view test and then you publish into different deployments to different domains when you're ready to actually share it with the world. So I'm going to click live view just to test this. The first time that I click it, it's going to ask me which root landing page because I didn't set that up. I could have set that up previously, but I just didn't yet. So I select the home page, the only page we have. And then this is going to load up the preview, and it looks like that font's not in there. So I'll check out what's going on in a second. But it looks pretty good, and it's pretty close to what I have here. It looks like I have some spacing around the outside, the font, and then to style these. Doing pretty good on time. All right, so first, let me figure out why that font is getting overridden. What I'm guessing is, so I set the font on the page level. And then I know there's no font on these because I just looked at them. There's no styles on these. What I'm guessing is somewhere in between the font is getting reset. So I'll just check this one really quick. Container join waiting list. And I do see right here there is a font family and a font size, which I don't need. That came from the pattern. I don't need them. I'll delete them. And we see now that popped in correctly. So I'm just going to make sure there's no other styles extra on there. All right, so that's pretty good. And that's looking a lot closer to here. It looks like now there's just some minor changes to these, so input field comes with a few styles in Bildr. You can either overwrite these, or if I know that I want this to apply to like any input I use in my project, then I would just change these base ones. And then this button comes with a class, but there's no styles on it at all. It's completely empty. And the reason for that is I set these styles once here, and then every new button I add to the page in the future gets that button class, gets those button styles. So in this case, I'm just going to be really straightforward. I'm just going to edit this input field. And I did this in the test run, so this is almost arbitrary. This is just whatever styles you'd want, but I did something like this. I did a width of 100% instead of that 200 pixels. And then I did a max width of 300 pixels, which is just a responsive way to do it. It just means that's going to be a 300 pixel wide input. Unless the screen shrinks smaller than 300 pixels, then it'll shrink. And then let's see. I think that's probably actually all I did to it. Looks like it. And then this button, let's do a background. Oops. A background color of maybe like DE. And then you can see now some of the defaults from buttons are a little 1996 HTML looking. So I usually on a button, I would add a border and an outline and just set them to none, unless I want a border, of course. And then let's set some padding. We'll try 1M all the way around. It's actually pretty close to what it was looking like there. I think that might even be all I did to it. Let me just clean this up. It should say sign up in capitals, or in whatever you call that, capital first letter case. All right, it looks pretty good. Oh, and this link, I can keep this link actually here, but I noticed since that's purple, that does have the pattern style. But it looks fine, so I'll just keep it there. Check my live view, and I can see these did update without needing to refresh, like I said. I think I just need to add some padding around this, and I'm probably good. The sign up button's a little different. I think it's got like a min width on it or something. I could just check. No need to waste time. Oh, 1 rem padding. Okay. Apparently has no background color. Width 100%, max width 100 pixels. So that's kind of an arbitrary CSS decision. I don't even know if I would do that again, but let me just match this. So I had width 100%, similar to the input actually. And then max width 100 pixels. All right. And then around the outside of the whole thing, I think I probably just did a 4 rem, 0 rem. Got it. And so this isn't like, if I did a full HTML page, I might be a little more deliberate in the container classes on this, but in this case, it's not a big deal. Ooh, I have a pattern out here. Oh, right. I'll just add it in here. Padding 4 rem, but 0 on the sides. Right. If I compare that and that, they look slightly different, but pretty close. And I didn't actually match them exactly anyway, so I'm not surprised they look slightly different. I just kind of built this off the cuff, but that's perfect. That's exactly what I need. And so visually, I'm done for this demo. But as you can see, like you could go further. You can like fully style this as you would in code using CSS. And the only thing I didn't show here is when you're the third view of these properties, you have all props, use props. You can actually write CSS directly per element. So you can get really almost anything done you want. Responsive stuff, media queries are up here, states are up here. You can add any state you want, you know, even pseudo states. So that's that for styling. The next thing is the actual email sign up. And so I don't actually do most of the work here because it pulls in from the pattern, but I'll explain quickly. When you type your email in this field and then click this sign up button, the sign up button has an event bound to it. And that event is called sign up for waiting list, which is an action. So you have all these action groups over here. Sign up for waiting list is going to do a few things. It'll disable the button so you can't click it twice. In this case, it'll run an action that's built into Bildr called sign up for waitlist, or it's actually sign up without password. And this will sign them up for the waitlist because well, let me backtrack a second. This will sign them up as a user. That's what this action does. And so I map fields, and actually weirdly looks like the fields aren't connected here. Let me just click out of here and make sure that's connected. It's not a big deal, but okay, we're good. This is just adding a user, but in my project, because I want a wait list, I'm going to come to my authentication settings, and there's a million settings I won't go through, but like there's a lot you can do. But I'm going to come in here to sign up type, change it from immediate sign up to waiting list. That's just so that when they get added, they can't actually sign in until I let them off the waiting list. So yeah, that's all that that's all we really need. We don't do anything custom here. Like in Bildr, most of the things you're building are kind of custom to your app. This is users, this is built in. So that part's done. And then the only thing to note on that is on a successful sign up, we choose an action group we're going to run. And then depending on if it's an error, depending on what the error is, we're going to run different action groups. So I have an action group for sign up for waiting list success. And what that does is it sets the value of a message, just say you're on the list with a little emoji, then it shows the message, then it enables the button again. And then I'll get to this in just 1 second, it sends an email to the person saying like, thanks for joining the waiting list. On the other hand, if it were an error, it would be one of these where it just kind of like sets in an error message. Well, I don't know. Here's probably where it sets it. Yeah. And then shows the error message. And so the only thing we need to do is in that action where it sends the email, we need to set it up a little bit custom because that's using SendGrid, which needs my API key. And so you could skip that. If you use this pattern, it would work right now. Somebody would sign up, they'd get added to the waiting list, like you'd be done. You could actually publish right now. But I think it's a little nicer when they get an email, and Bildr has a built-in SendGrid action to send a one-off SendGrid email, and SendGrid is free. Well, it's free to like 100 cents a day or something. So it makes sense in this case especially for me, I have a SendGrid account already. So create the SendGrid account and create this email. And so the way that works, because I'm using a pattern, it's already in here on this success action. There's an action group for send email on waiting list. And what that does is the first thing it does is it sets a variable, which is a Bildr thing, for the actual content of the email. So in this case, I strung together some HTML, but you could do just text, you can do whatever you want. And then it runs an action. Again, this comes with Bildr, where I actually send the email. And this would be sending it to the person who just signed up. So what I'm going to do now before I test it is just fill out these values so that when I test it, it also sends me an email. And then we're done, and I'll publish it. So the first thing, I'll look through this email content variable. This comes with a pattern again, so I probably don't need to change it. It just says, thanks for signing up in a header in H2. And then in some regular text says you've been added to the waiting list. You'll get another email when you get access. So that's fine. So we'll go to the actual SendGrid send action. And here's how we do it. We set the to email and we go from an element value, because we're going to get it, whatever they had typed in this input, from an element value, current page, element on the current page, email input waiting list. So we just, find this in our list of elements and we get the value from that. So whatever they have typed in here, that's going to be the to email. The reply to email, you just fill these out, or if you have them, so this is defaulted to text. This could come from an element, this could come from a variable, this could come from data in your data collections. But in this case, I'm just going to type these. And there's a separate reply to and from email based on SendGrid spam settings. You have to kind of register your from email. So I do it, this is registered, but if I were using, maybe in real life, I would come from the from email from the registered, and the reply to would be like Lost Pet Network at lostpetnetwork.com or whatever. So that's why there's two separate, but really they're the same in this case. From name is Drew. I can keep the subject, you're on the waiting list, or I could add whatever I wanted. And then the message, in this case, I'm getting it from a variable here. A variable on the current page, new user email message. And that's the variable I set right here, the user email message. So that's the message. We have it set to HTML because I wrote the message in HTML. You could switch to plain text. And then here, the API key. I have preloaded my API key into this project. That's the only thing in here because they're secret. But basically what you do is in SendGrid, and this is different for not every, but so many services have APIs or give you API keys so you can work with them. So it's all different spots. In SendGrid, I come into settings and then API keys. That's where you'd find it. So you generate a new one. I don't think you can copy them from here after you generate. They're completely hidden, but you can create a new one. And then in Bildr, when I'm on this action, or I can access this from my project settings, I do manage secrets. And so if this were brand new, you'd add a new secret here, but I already added SendGrid, and you just paste the value for each of the deployments. So this is Bildr default, the project's default to a test, a development, and a production deployment. We're working in the development right now. But you can actually have as many as you want, and if you needed to have separate API keys for each, you could. So that's the SendGrid API key is set as a secret in my project, which means now I can use it anywhere else. So what I'll do is I'll actually use it under this API key field. I select SendGrid. The benefit of all that extra stuff just for that value is that that API key is never going to touch a browser. So if you're not familiar with how that all works, it just means like no one can steal your API key. It's not going to be exposed in a way where someone could grab it and then start sending emails on your behalf, basically, in this case. It's more important for some other API keys like Stripe, where it's payments, or like, you know, stuff that's maybe it's updating an Airtable database. You want to keep that API key secret so that no one updates your data. In this case, it's not that important, but somewhat important. And then success and error action. I'm going to leave these blank for now, but depending on the flow of your application in other circumstances, that's where you might use these. You know, you might send an email and you need to know whether it's successfully sent or not. That's where you use these. In my case, I'm done. I just filled those out, and this, in theory, is all going to work now. So who knows? I mean, completely live demo, but I think it'll work. So I just refreshed for kind of good measure. Didn't probably need to refresh, but I just want to make sure, since I'm demoing, that I don't have to do it twice. So I come here, enter my email address, and because it's a pattern, this is like set up that I can press enter to send it or click sign up to send it. Oh, and I forgot to do a hand cursor on this button. That's a good small tweak. But yeah, so let me sign up. It says signing up. It says I'm on the list. And all of that, all the things that happen, the way that animated out, the color of it, that's all from the pattern. And then I have that email account open. Here's the email that just says, thanks for signing up. You've been added to the wait list. And because this is quick, that's all it says. But like, I could put anything in here, you know, images, more text, more links, buttons, whatever. All right, so that's that, and it's pretty much done. I think we're ready to publish. So that's all set up. I can see if I come into my end users here, I'll be able to actually see that user and that they're on the waiting list. And then when I'm ready, I can move them off the waiting list. But that would be a separate demo. There's a lot more you can do around that, a lot more to say. Really cool stuff. But for now, that's all I'll go into. So we're good. So now, because as I mentioned, like, this is a real project, I'm going to publish this to a real domain, and it's going to exist. So to publish, first of all, you have to be on one of the paid plans. There's a $9 a month and a $29 a month. And in order to publish, you have to be on one of them. So after you upgrade, instead of saying upgrade to publish, this button will say publish. So I'll come in here. The deployments are pretty powerful. They might seem a little confusing at first glance if you're like, wait, what, deployments? But they're not too crazy, and they're super powerful. So what it is you have a development, a test, and a production deployment. I'm in development working right now. That's my working deployment. So if I had like a group of maybe early users or beta testers, or, you know, insiders, or maybe even just my team, or if I'm an agency, I could have maybe my clients, someone that I want to show a solid version of this application, I could publish that to test, and I could give it a unique URL, like something.bildr.com or beta.lostpetnetwork.com in this case, like, you know, a subdomain. And then other stakeholders could test there in an environment that's not going to break while I work in development and potentially break stuff. And then if I make some updates, I want them to see it again, I publish a test again. Then if they approve everything, whoever's viewing it there, or if you're coming out of beta or whatever the situation, you can publish into production. And you can go from development directly into production, or you could even go from that stable test that you just tested into production. So there's a lot of really cool value there. But ultimately, production is the deployment that I want my main application on. So I'm not going to do any of that test stuff. I'm going to ignore this test deployment for right now. I'm just going to publish from development into production. So I do from development, and then I go into production. Because it's the first time I'm in production, publishing, or first time I'm publishing, I should say, to this deployment, I can choose a Bildr subdomain. So could be like Lost Pet, if I didn't own a domain name, for instance, lostpetnetwork.bildr.com. Or I can choose a custom domain, which is what I'm going to do in this case. And so I have a domain that is lostpet.network. Is it lost pet or lost pets? I don't even know. Lost pets, plural.network. So I'm going to set that up. And I want it to go if there's no subdomain, if it's just lostpets.network, or if it's www, I want them both to work. So I'm going to set up nothing.lostpets.network, and I'm going to keep www.lostpets.network. And now if I were doing just a subdomain, I would just X one of these out and just do like subdomain.lostpetsnetwork or whatever. But in this case, this is the exact setup I want. So I'm going to verify this. We're good, which basically just verify it in Bildr system, saying like no one else in Bildr has it. Verify this, we're good. And I'll continue. And then it gives me DNS records. And so at this point, this is like anything else, any other system when you set DNS. You just have to match these values in your DNS provider, and every DNS provider, every domain company, or if you're using Cloudflare or whatever, they're all different. So these instructions here are like vary slightly in each case, but essentially these records are DNS records, and there's certain kinds, and these kinds are always the same, or they're all, in each system. So I know I need an A record, a TXT record, and a CNAME record. So the first thing I'll do, come into my DNS. So this is a blank domain that well, I don't know when I bought it, but I never did anything to it. It's just fresh bought. And so when you come in, it's got a few, this is from Namecheap, it's got a few records in there. I can either delete those, or in Namecheap, if I add a new one, it will delete those for me. So I'll add my first A record. And that A record, I just matched these things. The host was at, and the value was this IP address. So A record, host at, values, paste that IP address. So add that. And you can see it deleted those other two ones because it knew they were placeholders. And then I can add a new one. This one will be a TXT record for at, and this is the value. So I copy that. Come down to TXT record. At in this case for host, at basically means like no subdomain, like root. Not that you really need to know that, but that's what it's saying. So it's saying if you go to just lostpets.network, it's going to use this. And then the TXT record is something Bildr uses. And then in this case, I'll do a CNAME for if you type www.lostpets.network or www. Yeah, exactly. So add a new one, a CNAME. This one's www. Sorry, I thought that was capital, but it's not. And that's the value. And then I add it. So that's it. It's sometimes intimidating, DNS, and especially if you have like email on this domain and other stuff, there's like a lot more records. But really, it's kind of simple. You just follow those instructions, and in most cases, you're good to go. Sometimes you have crazy special cases on domains, but so I did those three. It can take an hour, so I don't know how fast I'll verify. I'm kind of actually just stalling for a second, but I click I've added all my records, and then I click continue here. It's going to check. So I'm just giving it a minute to make sure, because usually I've noticed it takes maybe like 5 minutes, but it could take much longer. So I'll do the test. So right now Bildr is checking those records. It's like sending out and making sure that I have everything linked up correctly on my end before it actually publishes. And it looks like it worked. So everything went through. And now, as a next step, Bildr sets up a free and automatic SSL. So you have HTTPS, but you need to fill out some details. So I can just fill out Texas, Austin. Oh, you know what? I think my caps lock is on and the button. Wow, the light on my caps lock is broken. So I kept looking, I kept thinking I was doing capitals. And I look down and it's not on caps lock, but the caps lock light is broken on my keyboard. All right, so my umbrella company is Work and Whistle, and then organizational unit I use whatever I'm building. So I just set it up like that, and that's just, oops, I gotta do 2 of these. And that's just for basically when people look at your certificate, they need to know these details. And if they recognize these names like Work and Whistle and Lost Pet Network, they're like, okay, at least I sort of know it's coming legit. So it's just good to put good values in. That was my point. So submit that one. Oh, I could have done them one at a time. Okay, submit this one. So we just went through like a bunch of sort of IT technical steps. That's all that's happening here as we set up the DNS, set up the security certificates. And now that everything's done and Bildr has confirmed everything's done, I just publish. And so all that stuff we did in the future, we skip it. We just say publish from development to production, publish, and then it just publishes out. But in this case, we're good. Those published. And so I think it usually takes an extra second for the SSL to kick in, the security certificate. So I'm going to wait just one extra second, but then I'm going to type that URL and we'll see my landing page there. And that's it. And then as a wrap up, since this only took 40 minutes instead of an hour, I'll just show you what to do from here as far as like starting a new workspace to actually develop your project in. So I think it's been some time. So we'll do lostpets.network. And it looks like it's going to work. Or maybe it'll just be blank. All right. So yeah, so we've got everything there. The image, the font, this, I already signed up with that email. I'm not going to go through that again, but I'm certain that works because it worked in the other deployment we published. Nothing changed, but all good. And so now that's real. So first of all, that's real. If you're interested in this, if you go to that URL, let me see, lostpets.network. Feel free. I'd love to have people sign up. I'm actually going to add in another input in here for city because it's kind of a location-based idea, but that's real. That exists. And now, moving forward, I'm going to actually make this into a real product. I don't know when, but at some time. And so if I were doing that now, if I were ready to get started, back in my project, I have this workspace up here, a landing page with waiting list. I can just come in and either make a completely new workspace, or since this was a pattern, I already have a blank workspace that I started the project with. So if I come back here, it's blank again. It's prompting me to add a new page because it's blank. So here I just start building my project, and that whole landing page is just kind of like off. I don't have to worry about it or think about it anymore. And then as I'm building here, maybe I published a test, or maybe I publish a different deployment that I make. I can do these different ways to sort of build my app and view my app. And you can always view live view if you're working by yourself, but build and share your app outside of that landing page setup. And then when this app's ready and I switch it so that app's live, then I go into that end user section and I just let people off the waiting list. And when they get off the waiting list, I can set it up so they get an automatic email, they sign in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. Hopefully that was informative. And I think I talked a lot and I said a lot of extra stuff. So hopefully this will be a really fast and nice little series where I'll make these into kind of like 4 or 5 small chunks and you can follow along, but hopefully you could just follow along from that. If you do want to do this yourself, again, you click this plus button, import patterns, and that's where you'll get that initial landing page with waiting list pattern. You have access to it already if you have access to Bildr. And if not, you will when you have it. So that's pretty much it. I think I'm trying to make sure there's nothing else to cover, but I think that's it. And so I'll make this live stream into a video and I'll share that. And then, like I said, I'll make an actual kind of like more polished video of all this stuff too. Cool. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And I'm going to end it early, 15 minutes early. And I'll be back on Friday. I'm going to do something. I think I'm going to start doing like a big style kit pattern in Bildr on Friday and just kind of work on it a few sessions. But as usual, I actually don't know. And I still don't have the website for this stuff up, but that is coming. It's like half built. I just need to find the time to finish it off. And then that'll house all of the previous videos, all the previous live streams I've been doing, and show the upcoming ones. So look out for that. live.workandwhistle.co. It will be. And thanks again. See you next time.